I never thought a birthday party would change my life forever. Standing there in my brother's backyard, I watched in disbelief as my mother served cake to every child except my 5-year-old daughter. When Emma reached for a slice, my mom pulled the plate away and said loudly, "She shouldn't be here." Emma's eyes filled with tears, her little body trembling in shock. Without causing a scene, I quietly gathered our things, took my daughter's hand, and left the celebration. The next morning, my phone rang. It was my mother, her voice desperate. "Please, don't do this." The invitation to my nephew Tyler's 6th birthday party had seemed like a peace offering. After 5 years of strained relations with my family, especially my mother Susan, I thought we were finally moving toward reconciliation. The source of tension wasn't complicated. I had chosen to become a single mother through a sperm donor at 35, a decision my traditional mother never accepted. "Are we really going to meet Grandma today?" Emma asked that morning, her blue eyes wide with excitement as I brushed her blonde curls. Her innocence broke my heart. Despite my mother's rejection, I had always shown Emma photos of her grandmother and told her stories, hoping that someday they would have a relationship. "Yes, sweetheart. And your cousin Tyler, too." "It's his birthday," I replied, helping her into the yellow sundress she had picked out specially for the occasion. "Will he like the robot dinosaur we got him?" she asked, referring to the gift we had spent hours selecting at the toy store. "I think he'll love it," I assured her, though my stomach knotted with anxiety about the day ahead. As a marketing executive for a major firm in Portland, I was used to handling stressful situations, but nothing in my professional life compared to the emotional minefield of my family dynamics. My brother Jack had seemed supportive of my choice initially, even defending me to our mother. But over time, as Tyler was born and grew, Jack and his wife Amanda had gradually pulled away, aligning more with our mother's traditional views. The drive to Jack's suburban home took 40 minutes, during which Emma chatted excitedly about meeting her extended family. I had shown her photos of everyone, hoping to make the introductions easier. When we arrived, the front yard was decorated with balloons and a banner reading, "Happy 6th birthday, Tyler." Children's laughter echoed from the backyard. "Ready?" I asked Emma, who nodded enthusiastically. Jack answered the door, his smile tight. "Ina, you made it," he said, giving me an awkward hug before looking down at Emma. "And this must be Emma. Tyler's been excited to meet his cousin." In the backyard, I spotted my mother immediately. At 68, Susan Walker still maintained the perfect appearance she'd prized all her life, hair neatly styled, wearing a floral dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. When she saw us, her smile faltered for just a moment, before she composed herself and approached. "Ina," she said, kissing my cheek stiffly. She looked down at Emma, but didn't bend to her level as most grandmothers would. "So this is her." "This is Emma," I corrected firmly. "Emma, this is your grandmother." Emma, ever polite, extended her small hand. "Hello, Grandma. I'm very pleased to meet you." My mother hesitated before briefly taking Emma's hand. "Hello?" she replied, then quickly turned to me. "The other guests are arriving. Jack needs help with the grill." As the party progressed, I watched Emma cautiously integrate with the other children. Tyler, a boisterous kindergartner with Jack's dark hair, eventually approached her and invited her to play on the swing set. Relief washed over me seeing them get along. While helping Amanda arrange drinks in the kitchen, I overheard a conversation that made me freeze. "Susan still hasn't accepted Emma, has she?" asked a woman I recognized as my Aunt Carol. "Well, you know how she is about tradition," Amanda replied quietly. "Tyler was different because Jack and I were already married when I got pregnant." "Barely," Carol snorted. "What was it, 2 months after the wedding?" Amanda hushed her quickly. "That's different. At least we were married. Susan says children need a mother and father, and Ina deliberately denied Emma that. The realization hit me like a truck. The reason my nephew was accepted while my daughter was treated as an outsider had nothing to do with marriage timelines. It was the illusion of propriety. Tyler was conceived after a wedding ceremony, so he fit into my mother's narrative of family values, regardless of the actual timeline. Emma, conceived intentionally through careful planning, and a donor I had researched for months, was considered illegitimate. I took a deep breath and walked back outside, determined not to let this revelation ruin the day for Emma. She deserved this chance to know her family, regardless of their hypocrisy. "Time for cake," Amanda called, and children scrambled to gather around the picnic table where a large dinosaur-themed cake stood with 6 blazing candles. Tyler sat at the head of the table, a paper crown on his head, while Emma found a spot next to a little girl I didn't recognize. The gathering sang happy birthday, and Tyler blew out his candles to enthusiastic applause. My mother, who had apparently appointed herself cake server, began cutting large slices and placing them on paper plates. "One for the birthday boy," she announced, giving Tyler the first piece. Then she began serving the other children, working her way around the table. When she reached Emma's spot, she simply skipped over her and continued to the next child. Emma looked confused, but didn't say anything, perhaps thinking it was a mistake. My heart began to race as I watched from a few feet away. After serving all the other children, my mother put down the cake knife. Emma raised her hand timidly. "Excuse me, Grandma?" "I didn't get any cake," she said softly. The table fell quiet. My mother looked directly at Emma, then at me, before saying loudly enough for nearby adults to hear, "She shouldn't be here." Emma's face crumpled in confusion. "What?" "This is a family celebration," my mother continued, her voice steady. "Real family." The silence around the table was deafening. Emma's eyes welled with tears as she looked at me in confusion and hurt. "Mommy? Why doesn't Grandma want me to have cake?" Several relatives shifted uncomfortably. Amanda looked mortified, but said nothing. Jack stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Mom," maybe he began. "I've made my feelings clear from the beginning," my mother interrupted. "I won't pretend." Heat rushed to my face as I crossed to Emma, who was now openly crying. Children stared while parents whispered. I knelt beside her chair. "It's okay, sweetie. We're going to go now," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady, despite the rage and heartbreak coursing through me. "But we just got here," Emma sniffled. "I didn't get to give Tyler his present." "We'll give it to him another time," I promised, helping her from her chair. "Let's get your sweater from inside." As I guided Emma toward the house, I heard Jack's voice behind me. "Mom, was that necessary? In front of everyone?" I slowed, waiting to hear my mother's response. "It was absolutely necessary," she replied firmly. "You did the right thing, inviting them we tried. But I won't pretend that situation is normal or acceptable. You did the right thing supporting me on this, Jack." My brother's response stunned me. "I know, Mom. You did the right thing. Ina needs to understand there are consequences to her choices." The betrayal cut deep. All this time, I'd thought Jack was caught in the middle, torn between his sister and his mother. But he'd been enabling her all along, presenting a supportive face to me while agreeing with her behind my back. I hurried Emma inside, gathered our things, and left without saying goodbye to anyone. As I buckled Emma into her car seat, her small voice broke through her tears. "Grandma doesn't like me, does she?" she asked. "It's not you, sweetheart," I answered, my own tears threatening to spill over. "Grandma has some very old-fashioned ideas about families. But there's nothing wrong with our family. You and me, we're perfect, just as we are." As I drove away from my brother's house, Emma's quiet crying from the back seat tore at my heart. I made a silent promise to myself and to her. No one would ever make her feel less, then again, not even her own grandmother. She called again, Heather said, holding up my phone as I walked into my living room after putting Emma to bed 3 days after the birthday party disaster. My best friend since college had been staying with us, providing much, needed moral support. "That's what, 15 calls now?" I sighed, collapsing onto the couch. 17, plus 4 from Jack, and 2 from Amanda. Heather handed me a glass of wine. "You can't avoid them forever, Ina." "I'm not avoiding them forever. Just until I can trust myself not to scream at them in front of Emma." I took a long sip. She had another nightmare last night. Kept asking why her grandma hates her. Heather's expression softened. "Poor kid, what are you telling her? That families are complicated, and grandma has trouble accepting different kinds of families. That it's about grandma's problems, not about her." I ran a hand through my hair. But she's 5, Heather. How does a 5-year-old process rejection like that? With a lot of love from her amazing mom, Heather replied. And maybe some professional help? Would you consider taking her to talk to someone? I nodded. Already scheduled an appointment with a child psychologist for next week. My phone buzzed again. My mother's name flashed on the screen. Just block her number already, Heather suggested. I probably should. But I didn't reach for the phone. Despite everything, completely cutting off my mother felt like a step I wasn't quite ready to take. The next morning, as I arrived at the advertising firm, where I worked as an executive creative director, my assistant Tom approached with an uncomfortable expression. Your mother is here, he said quietly. She's been waiting for almost an hour. I tried to tell her you were in meetings all day, but she insisted on waiting. I closed my eyes briefly, gathering my composure. Where is she? Conference room B. I figured you'd want privacy. Thanks, Tom. Hold my calls, would you? My mother stood as I entered the conference room, her purse clutched tightly in her hands. She looked smaller somehow, less formidable than she had at the party. This is my workplace, Mom, I said evenly, closing the door behind me. You can't just show up here. You left me no choice. You won't answer my calls. Her voice held a hint of accusation, as if I were the one who had behaved badly. Did you really expect me to? After what you did to Emma? The calm I'd promised myself I'd maintain was already slipping. I didn't do anything to her. I simply didn't serve her cake. The casualness of her statement stunned me. You publicly rejected and humiliated a 5-year-old child. My child. You said she shouldn't be there at a family gathering. Do you have any idea what that did to her? My mother sighed, as if I were being dramatic. Ina, I've been very clear about my feelings regarding your situation. I tried to be civil. No, you raised me to keep up appearances, I interrupted. That's why Tyler is accepted, right? Because Jack and Amanda were married when he was conceived, even if barely? A granddaughter conceived in a laboratory, my mother replied sharply. With no father, no proper family structure. Just because modern science allows something doesn't make it right. So that's what this is about? Not that I'm a single mother, but how Emma was conceived? I shook my head in disbelief. It's about choices, Ina. Choices have consequences. I raised you to understand family values, tradition. Are we really going to meet Grandma today? Emma asked that morning, her blue eyes wide with excitement as I brushed her blonde curls. Her innocence broke my heart. Despite my mother's rejection, I had always shown Emma photos of her grandmother and told her stories, hoping that someday they would have a relationship. My mother's eyes narrowed. That's entirely different. Is it? Or is it just easier to pretend because there was a wedding first? I leaned forward. Why did you come here, Mom? To justify what you did? To make me feel bad for walking away? She smoothed her skirt, composing herself. I came because, despite your poor choices, you're still my daughter. I don't want to lose you. But you're willing to reject your granddaughter. I'm protecting our family's values. Which is why I wanted to tell you in person that I've updated my will. She met my eyes directly. Emma will not be included in the inheritance. I can't in good conscience treat her as family when she's not really family in the traditional sense. The cold calculation of her words left me breathless. This wasn't just about cake at a birthday party. This was a systematic rejection of my child's very existence. Get out, I said quietly. Ina, get out of my office. Now. My voice remained steady, but my hands were shaking. And don't contact me again. If you can't accept my daughter as your granddaughter fully and completely, then you don't get to have me as your daughter. After she left, I sat alone in the conference room for nearly an hour, unable to focus on work. My mother's comments about real family and inheritance kept replaying in my mind. There was something about the way she'd emphasized our family values that struck me as peculiar, almost as if she were overcompensating. That evening, after putting Emma to bed with extra stories and reassurance, I pulled out the old family photo albums I'd kept in a storage box. If my mother was so concerned about family legacy and tradition, perhaps there was something in our history I'd overlooked. The storage unit smelled of dust and forgotten memories. I hadn't visited it since moving to my current apartment 3 years ago, but I knew the box I wanted was here somewhere, my father's old records and papers that I'd inherited when he died 8 years ago. After an hour of searching through labeled containers, I found it. A cardboard box marked Dad Personal. Inside were folders of financial documents, old cards, and at the bottom, a small locked box I'd never opened. The key had been on my father's keychain, which I kept in my jewelry box at home. 2 days later, with Emma at her preschool, I sat at my kitchen table with the unlocked box before me. Inside were letters, dozens of them, along with some legal papers. The first letter I picked up was dated June 1975, nearly 50 years ago. It was addressed to my father, Thomas Walker, from a woman named Linda Chambers. "Dear Thomas," it began, "I understand your decision to end our relationship given your engagement to Susan. However, I feel you should know that I am now 4 months pregnant with your child. I don't expect anything from you financially or otherwise, but I thought you deserved to know you will have a daughter in this world." My hands trembled as I read further. According to the letters that followed, my father had initially denied responsibility, then later acknowledged the child, but begged Linda to keep the situation quiet, as he was already married to my mother by then. There were legal documents showing he had paid child support secretly for years. I had a half-sister, a sister I'd never known about, who would now be around 47 years old. The hypocrisy was staggering. My mother, who had rejected Emma for not having a proper origin story, had built her marriage on the hidden foundation of my father's illegitimate child. She must have known the documents showed the payments had continued throughout their marriage until my father's death. Using the information from the letters, I searched social media and quickly found Rachel Chambers. Her profile picture showed a woman with the same dimpled smile as my father. According to her profile, she lived just 40 miles away in Salem, working as a nurse practitioner. After several days of internal debate, I sent her a message explaining who I was. To my surprise, she responded within hours. "Ina, I've known about you my entire life. My mother showed me pictures of your father and told me about his other family. I've seen your posts about your daughter. She's beautiful. I always wondered if we'd ever meet, but I didn't want to disrupt your life. Would you like to have coffee sometime?" 2 weeks after the birthday party incident, I sat across from my half-sister in a quiet cafe halfway between our cities. Rachel had the same dark hair as our father and Jack, while I'd inherited our mother's lighter coloring. "I can't believe we've lived so close all these years," I said, still studying her face for familiar features. Rachel smiled. "Mom always kept track of where you all were, but she respected your father's wishes not to interfere. After she died 5 years ago, I debated reaching out, but," she shrugged, "I wasn't sure if you knew about me." "I had no idea until I found those letters," I admitted. "My mother never said a word." "She knew," Rachel confirmed. "There was one time, when I was about 16, I worked up the courage to call your house. Your mother answered. When I said who I was, she told me never to contact your family again and hung up. I respected that until now." I shook my head, anger bubbling up anew. All these years she's judged me for having Emma without a father, when she was hiding the fact that my father had a child outside his marriage. "People often judge others harshest for the things they're most sensitive about," Rachel observed. "From what my mother told me, your parents were only married 3 months when she found out about me. Your mother chose to stay with him, but it sounds like she never really made peace with it." "That doesn't excuse what she did to Emma," I said firmly. "Of course not," Rachel agreed. "I'm just trying to understand. My mother raised me alone too, so I admire what you're doing with Emma." She hesitated. "Would you be open to me meeting her sometime? I'd love to be an aunt if that's not too weird." For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. My family might be fractured, but perhaps it was also expanding in unexpected ways. That hope was short-lived. When I arrived at my apartment building that evening, Jack was waiting in the lobby. "We need to talk," he said without greeting. "About what?" "How you agreed with Mom that my daughter shouldn't be at your son's birthday party." I replied coldly. He had the grace to look uncomfortable. "That's not exactly what happened. Can we go upstairs?" I'd rather not do this here. Once inside my apartment, with the babysitter dismissed and Emma playing in her room, Jack paced nervously. Mom told me you met with Rachel Chambers today, he said finally. I stared at him. How would she know that? She has someone watching your social media. Rachel posted a photo of the two of you at the cafe. He ran a hand through his hair. Ina, do you have any idea what you're doing? Mom is furious. You knew about Rachel? I asked, though I already suspected the answer. He nodded. For about 10 years, I found some of the letters in Dad's desk when I was helping him organize his finances after his heart attack. Mom made me promise never to tell you. And you kept that promise, I said flatly. Just like you pretended to support me while actually siding with Mom about Emma. It's complicated, Ina. Mom comes from a different generation. Stop making excuses for her, I interrupted. And for yourself. You're a grown man with a child of your own. You could have stood up to her. You could have made sure your son and my daughter had a chance to know each other as cousins. Instead, you went along with her prejudice. You don't understand what it's been like, he argued. After Dad died, Mom leaned on me for everything. Her approval matters. More than doing what's right? More than family? That's rich coming from you, he scoffed. You chose to create a family that excludes fathers entirely. How is that putting family first? His words stung, but I held my ground. I chose to create a loving family for my child, even without a traditional structure. Emma has me, she has friends, she has a support system, or she would have, if her grandmother and uncle hadn't rejected her. Jack shook his head. I didn't reject her. I invited you both to the party, where you stood by while Mom humiliated her, where you told Mom afterward that she did the right thing. I heard you, Jack. He had the decency to look ashamed. I was just trying to keep peace. Well, congratulations. It's very peaceful now that we're not speaking to each other. I moved toward the door. I think you should go. Ina, please. Mom's been spreading talk that you're an unfit mother, that you're keeping Emma from the family out of spite. People are starting to believe her. Let them, I replied. Though his words sent a chill through me. Anyone who knows me knows that's not true. After he left, I checked Emma's social media accounts that I maintained for family photos. Several relatives had unfriended us. Comments had been deleted. The family divide was growing wider. That night, as I scrolled through old family photos on my laptop, I came across something strange: my parents' wedding album that I'd digitized years ago. Looking at the dates with fresh eyes, I did a quick calculation. They were married in April 1975, and according to Rachel's birth certificate that she'd shown me, she was born in November of the same year. That meant my mother was already 4 months pregnant with Jack when she married my father. The hypocrisy was even greater than I'd imagined. My mother had been pregnant before marriage herself, yet she condemned my choice to have a child on my own. The difference was that she'd maintained the appearance of propriety by marrying before the birth, creating a story that fit her values narrative. With this revelation, I knew I had to confront my mother, not just for Emma's sake or my own, but for the sake of truth itself. The annual Walker family reunion was scheduled for the first weekend in July, just 3 weeks after the birthday party incident. Traditionally held at my Uncle Robert's lakeside property, it gathered extended family from across 3 states. I'd already decided to skip it this year when the formal invitation arrived in my mailbox with a handwritten note from Uncle Robert. Please come. Not everyone agrees with Susan. Emma deserves to know her family. Are we really going? Rachel asked when I called to tell her about it. In the weeks since meeting my half-sister, we'd developed a close relationship, with regular calls and weekend visits. I'm considering it, I admitted. Not for Mom's sake, but because Uncle Robert's right, Emma should have the chance to know the family members who want to know her. Then I'm coming with you, Rachel said firmly. It's time I met the Walker side of the family anyway, don't you think? The decision wasn't easy. Emma had been making progress with her therapist, Dr. Lawson, who had helped her understand that her grandmother's rejection wasn't her fault. Did I want to risk another potentially traumatic encounter? But as Dr. Lawson pointed out, sheltering Emma completely might teach her to avoid difficult situations rather than face them with support. Would you like to go to a big family party where you'd meet lots of cousins? I asked Emma over ice cream the following weekend. Uncle Robert has a house by a lake with a sandy beach for swimming. Will Grandma be there? She asked cautiously, stirring her melting ice cream. Yes, I answered honestly. But so will I, and your new Aunt Rachel. We won't let anyone be mean to you. Emma considered this seriously. Can I bring Sparkles? She asked, referring to her favorite stuffed unicorn. Absolutely. Okay then, she decided. I think Sparkles would like to see a lake. The 2 weeks before the reunion were a flurry of preparation. Rachel and I strategized how to handle various scenarios, particularly confrontations with my mother. I spoke with Uncle Robert, who assured me that Emma would be fully included in all activities. I even had several conversations with a family therapist about the best way to protect Emma while still allowing her to connect with willing family members. When the day arrived, I dressed Emma in her favorite blue sundress with matching ribbons in her hair. I packed a bag with everything she might need, including her comfort items and favorite snacks in case she felt overwhelmed. Rachel met us at my apartment, and we drove together in my car. Nervous? Rachel asked as we approached Uncle Robert's property, where cars were already lined up along the rural road. Terrified, I admitted, but also determined. You're not alone, she reminded me, squeezing my hand. No matter what happens today, remember that. Uncle Robert greeted us warmly at the entrance to the property. A tall man in his 70s with a full white beard, he had always been the family peacekeeper. Ina, it's so good to see you, he said, hugging me before bending down to Emma's level. And you must be Emma. I've heard wonderful things about you. Emma smiled shyly. Thank you for inviting me and Sparkles to your lake. Sparkles is very welcome, he assured her seriously, before turning to Rachel. And you must be Rachel. The resemblance to Thomas is remarkable. Nice to meet you, Uncle Robert, Rachel replied. Thank you for including me. He lowered his voice. Susan doesn't know you're coming. Either of you, actually. She assumed you wouldn't attend, Ina. Is that going to be a problem? I asked. He shook his head. This is my home, and I've invited who I want to be here. Susan will just have to deal with it. The reunion was already in full swing when we made our way to the large backyard that sloped down to the lakefront. Children played on the beach while adults gathered around picnic tables laden with food. I spotted my mother immediately, holding court among a group of older relatives. Let's say hello to the kids first, I suggested to Emma, steering her toward the water where several children were building sandcastles. We managed nearly an hour of peaceful integration. Emma was cautiously welcomed by her cousins, and a few aunts and uncles stopped by to greet us warmly. Rachel circulated, introducing herself and answering the inevitable curious questions about her connection to the family. I was helping Emma add a seashell decoration to her sandcastle when a hush fell over the nearby adults. Looking up, I saw my mother standing at the edge of the beach, staring at us with an expression of controlled fury. What is she doing here? She demanded loudly, pointing at Emma. Then her gaze shifted to Rachel. And who is this? Uncle Robert stepped forward. Susan, you know very well that's Ina's daughter Emma, and this is Rachel Chambers, Thomas's daughter. I invited them both. My mother's face paled. You had no right. I had every right, he countered calmly. This is my home, and they are family. Chambers is not family, my mother hissed. And as for that child? Her name is Emma, I interrupted, standing to face my mother. And she's your granddaughter, whether you accept that or not. Ina, Jack appeared beside our mother, his expression pleading. Don't make a scene. I'm not the one making a scene, I replied evenly. Emma is quietly building a sandcastle. She's not hurting anyone. My mother looked around at the gathering crowd of relatives. Perhaps we should continue this discussion privately. No, I said firmly. There's been enough secrecy and behind. The scene's manipulation. If you have something to say it here. She straightened her shoulders. Very well. I believe children should be raised in proper families with mothers and fathers. I believe in tradition and values. What you've done, Ina, deliberately creating a fatherless child, goes against everything our family stands for. Our family? I laughed without humor. You mean the family where my father had a child with another woman while engaged to you? The family where you were 4 months pregnant with Jack when you got married? Gasps and whispers erupted around us. My mother's face flushed deep red. How dare you? She breathed. How dare I tell the truth? I stepped closer. For years you've positioned yourself as the moral authority of this family, judging everyone else's choices while hiding your own secrets. You rejected my daughter for not having a proper origin story, when your own story isn't what you've pretended it was. That was different, my mother insisted, though her voice had lost some of its conviction. Different how? I challenged. Because you got married before Jack was born? Because you maintained the appearance of propriety while condemning others who didn't? Jack looked stunned. Mom, is this true? You were pregnant when you married Dad? Before she could answer, Amanda stepped forward. I think I understand now, she said quietly. All these years, the constant judgment about how we're raising Tyler, the little comments about our parenting. It's because you're terrified someone will find out you weren't perfect either. My mother looked around desperately, finding herself increasingly isolated as family members processed the revelations. You don't understand, she insisted. Times were different then. We did what we had to do. Exactly, I said. You did what you had to do in your circumstances, just like I did what I thought was best in mine. The difference is, I've never pretended to be perfect or judged others for their choices. To my surprise, my cousin Melissa stepped forward. Aunt Susan, you refused to come to my wedding because my fiancé was divorced. You said it wasn't a real marriage in the eyes of God. And you told me I shouldn't adopt because blood matters, added another cousin, Brian. My daughter has been part of this family for 4 years, and you've never once acknowledged her birthday. One by one, family members began sharing stories of judgment, rejection, and moral superiority from my mother. It was as if a dam had broken, releasing years of accumulated resentment and hurt. In the midst of this, I felt a small tug on my hand. Emma looked up at me, confusion in her eyes. Mommy, why is everyone angry? I knelt beside her. Sometimes grown ups disagree about things, sweetheart. But it's not about you, okay? You've done nothing wrong. Amanda approached us cautiously. Emma, Tyler, and some of the kids are going to roast marshmallows at the fire pit. Would you like to join them? I'll take you over. After ensuring Emma was safely engaged with her cousins under Amanda's watchful eye, I returned to find the confrontation had shifted. My mother stood alone now, her usual supporters having stepped back. Even Jack maintained a careful distance. For years, I said, keeping my voice level, you've divided this family with your judgment and conditional love. You've hurt not just me and Emma, but many others here. If you want any relationship with your granddaughter, with any of us, it has to stop now. You can't dictate terms to me, she replied, though her voice trembled slightly. I'm not dictating. I'm setting boundaries. Emma deserves a grandmother who loves her unconditionally. I deserve a mother who respects my choices. If you can't be those things, then we'll continue our lives without you in them. As I turned to walk away, she called after me. You need me, Ina. You all need me. This family wouldn't exist without me holding it together. Rachel, who had been silent throughout, finally spoke. Maybe it's time for a different kind of family, Susan. One built on acceptance instead of judgment. One that makes room for all of us, however we came to be. The rest of the afternoon passed in a strange new reality. My mother retreated to Uncle Robert's house, while the rest of the family continued the reunion with a noticeably lighter atmosphere. Emma played with her cousins, Tyler especially taking a protective role toward his younger cousin. Rachel was welcomed by curious relatives eager to know this newly discovered family member. As evening approached, I was helping serve the potluck dinner when Jack sought me out. Can we talk? He asked, his expression troubled. Alone? We walked down to the dock, away from the festivities. Why didn't you tell me about Mom and Dad? He asked, once we were seated at the edge of the water. About the timing of their marriage? I only figured it out recently, I admitted. When I found the letters about Rachel, he nodded slowly. I've been thinking about what you said, about standing up for what's right. I didn't do that for you, or for Emma. I was so focused on keeping Mom happy that I lost sight of everything else. It's not too late, I told him. Emma's only 5. There's plenty of time for you to be the uncle she deserves. I'd like that, he said. And I'm sorry, Ina. Truly sorry for not supporting you both. As darkness fell over the lake, Emma fell asleep in my lap near the bonfire, exhausted from a day of play and emotional intensity. Rachel sat beside us, roasting a marshmallow. Quite a day, she observed. Not exactly the family reunion I imagined. No, I agreed. But maybe a necessary one. As if summoned by our conversation, a shadow fell across us. My mother stood at the edge of the firelight, looking uncertain. May I join you? She asked quietly. Rachel and I exchanged glances before I nodded. My mother sat carefully on a nearby log, her eyes fixed on Emma's sleeping form. She looks peaceful, she commented. She is, I replied. Despite everything, my mother was silent for a long moment. I don't know if I can change, Ina. Not completely. Not overnight. I'm not asking for overnight, I told her. I'm asking for effort, for respect, for acceptance. I'm afraid, she admitted, surprising me with her candor. Afraid that if I accept everything, then nothing matters anymore. No standards, no values. There's a difference between having values and imposing them on others, Rachel pointed out gently. Between believing in something and rejecting people who believe differently. My mother looked at Rachel properly for the first time. You have his eyes. Thomas's eyes. So I've been told, Rachel replied with a small smile. I knew about you, my mother confessed. From the beginning. I married him anyway, thinking I could forget, that we could start fresh. But I never could quite forget. And you never wanted anyone else to forget their mistakes either, I observed. She sighed heavily. Perhaps not. As the embers of the bonfire dimmed, something shifted between us. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet, but the possibility of a new beginning. The path forward wouldn't be easy, but for Emma's sake, and for my own, I was willing to try if my mother was. Are you sure about this? Heather asked, arranging cupcakes on a tiered stand. It was 3 weeks after the family reunion, and we were preparing for Emma's 6th birthday party in my apartment. Not entirely, I admitted, but Emma wants her there, and she's making an effort. My mother had been taking small steps since the confrontation at the reunion. She'd called twice to speak directly to Emma on the phone. She'd sent a carefully chosen book about diverse families. Most surprisingly, she'd agreed to attend Emma's birthday party, with the understanding that it would be on my terms. Just remember what Dr. Matheson said, Heather cautioned, referring to the family therapist I'd been seeing. Clear boundaries, consistent consequences. Trust me, I remember, I assured her, checking the time. Guests would begin arriving in less than an hour, and my anxiety was mounting. Rachel should be here any minute to help with the decorations. The doorbell rang, and I hurried to answer it, expecting Rachel. Instead, Jack stood in the hallway, looking uncomfortable. I know I'm early, he said quickly. I hoped we could talk before everyone arrives. I hesitated, then stepped back to let him in. Emma's in her room trying on her party dress. We can talk in the kitchen. Once we were seated at the kitchen table, Jack pulled an envelope from his jacket. I wanted to give this to you before the party, he said, sliding it across the table. It's not much, but it's a start. Inside was a legal document transferring a small percentage of his ownership in the family vacation property to Emma's name. Dad always intended for the lake house to stay in the family, Jack explained. When he died, Mom convinced me to keep your share under my management until you settled down. I should have transferred it to you years ago. Now I'm making sure Emma has her rightful share too. Jack, this is. I was genuinely touched by the gesture. Thank you. There's something else you should know, he continued, his expression grave. Mom had a health scare last week. A minor heart attack. What? Why didn't you call me? She asked me not to. The doctors say she'll recover fully, but it's shaken her. She's been talking about making amends, about not wanting to die with things unresolved. He hesitated. She's rewritten her will again. Emma's been included. I shook my head. This isn't about inheritance, Jack. I know that, he assured me. I'm just saying, she's changing. Slowly, but she's trying. The doorbell rang again, and this time it was Rachel, arms laden with colorful packages. Sorry I'm late, she called, bustling in. The craft store was a madhouse. Oh, hi, Jack. As Rachel and Jack greeted each other somewhat awkwardly, Emma emerged from her bedroom in a sparkly purple dress, her face lighting up at the sight of her uncle. Uncle Jack, did you bring Tyler? She asked eagerly. He's coming with Aunt Amanda soon, Jack promised, kneeling to her level. He's very excited about your party. The next hour passed in a blur of preparations. By the time guests began arriving, schoolmates, neighbors, and family members, the apartment was transformed with streamers, balloons, and a happy 6th birthday Emma banner. I was helping a group of children with a craft activity when my mother arrived. She stood hesitantly in the doorway, a large gift bag in her hands, until Emma spotted her. Grandma, she called, running over. You came to my birthday. My mother knelt carefully, mindful of her designer pantsuit. Of course I did. Happy birthday, Emma. I approached them, maintaining a protective closeness to Emma. Glad you could make it, Mom. Thank you for inviting me, she replied formally, then added in a lower voice. Could we speak privately for a moment? Once Emma had rejoined her friends, my mother and I stepped into the relative quiet of the hallway. Jack told me about your heart attack, I said. How are you feeling? Better than I deserve, she replied with uncharacteristic humility. The doctors say it was minor, but it was, clarifying. When you think you might die, you suddenly see what matters. And what matters to you? I asked cautiously. Family, she answered simply. Not the idea of it, not the appearance of it, but the reality of it. Emma is my granddaughter. You are my daughter. I've been a fool. Mom, please, let me finish, she interrupted gently. I've spent decades judging others to avoid facing my own imperfections. I convinced myself I was protecting family values, when really I was just protecting my pride. Seeing all of you at the reunion, you, Emma, Rachel, everyone speaking their truth, it started something in me. The heart attack finished it. I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation or insincerity, but found none. This change of heart seems sudden. The expression seems sudden, she corrected. The change has been coming for a while. Since the birthday party, if I'm honest. Seeing Emma's face when I denied her cake. She paused, her composure slipping. I told myself I was standing on principle, but later that night, I couldn't sleep. All I could see was her confusion, her hurt. No principle is worth hurting a child like that. From inside the apartment, we heard children laughing as a game reached its exciting conclusion. I should get back, I said, nodding toward the door. Of course. My mother straightened her jacket. Just one more thing, Ina. I don't expect forgiveness right away, or maybe ever. But I would like the chance to try to be a proper grandmother to Emma. On your terms, with your guidance. Before I could respond, the apartment door opened, and Jack appeared, looking alarmed. Mom? Are you okay? You should be sitting down, not standing in the hallway. I'm fine, Jack, she replied firmly. Stop hovering. The doctor said to take it easy, he reminded her, offering his arm nonetheless. As they turned to go back inside, Jack glanced back at me. By the way, Amanda was looking for you. Something about the cake? The mention of cake brought a flicker of painful memory, but I pushed it aside. Today was about new beginnings. The party progressed smoothly after that. My mother sat quietly observing for most of it, occasionally engaging with relatives, but mainly watching Emma with a thoughtful expression. Emma, for her part, seemed to have forgiven her grandmother with the easy grace that children often show, stopping by periodically to share a toy or tell her about a game. When it came time for the birthday cake, a unicorn creation that had cost me a small fortune at the bakery, I found myself holding my breath as my mother approached the table where Emma sat in the place of honor. Would you like me to help serve? My mother asked me quietly. The parallel to Tyler's birthday party wasn't lost on anyone. A hush fell over the adults present as they waited for my response. Yes, I decided. You can serve. Starting with the birthday girl. My mother nodded, understanding the significance. With steady hands, she cut the first slice, the largest, with the unicorn's rainbow horn, and placed it carefully on a plate. For my granddaughter Emma, she said clearly, presenting it to the beaming 6-year-old. Happy birthday, sweetheart. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, I found myself alone in the kitchen with Amanda, washing dishes. It's been quite a month, she observed, drying a platter. First the reunion, now this. Your mother serving Emma cake felt like. I don't know, a ceremony almost. A symbolic reversal, I agreed. Though I'm still not sure how much I trust it. Amanda nodded understandingly. For what it's worth, Jack and I have noticed real changes. She came over for dinner last week and didn't make a single comment about our parenting. She even asked Tyler about his soccer game, actually listened to his answer. Small steps, I acknowledged. Speaking of steps, Amanda said hesitantly, Jack mentioned that your mother's health scare has her thinking about the future, about where she'll live as she gets older. I put down the dish I was washing. She's not moving in with me, if that's what you're suggesting. No, nothing like that, Amanda laughed. But she is considering downsizing from that big house to something more manageable, Jack thought. Well, we wondered if you might help her look at options. You've always had better taste than Jack, and your mother respects your opinion, even if she doesn't always show it. The request surprised me. After everything that had happened, helping my mother find a new home seemed strangely mundane, yet intimate. I'll think about it, I promised. Later that evening, after all the guests had left, and Emma was in bed, surrounded by her new presents, my doorbell rang one final time. It was nearly 9 o'clock, and I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Jack stood there alone, looking distressed. Mom's in the hospital again, he said without preamble. She was having chest pains on the drive home. The doctors are running tests now. Is it serious? I asked, already reaching for my purse. They don't think it's another heart attack, but they're being cautious because of her history. He hesitated. She's been asking for you. And for Emma. Emma's asleep, I said automatically. I can't wake her. I know, Jack acknowledged. But would you come, please? As I arranged for Heather to stay with Emma, I found myself torn between lingering anger and genuine concern. My mother and I had a lifetime of issues to work through, but her mortality suddenly made those issues seem less important. She's scared, Jack told me as we drove to the hospital. I've never seen her like this before. She keeps saying she needs to make things right, that she doesn't want to leave things unfinished. In the hospital room, my mother looked smaller and older than she had just hours before at the party. When she saw me, relief washed over her face. Ina, she said weakly, you came. Of course I came, I replied, taking the seat beside her bed. How are you feeling? Foolish, she admitted. The doctors think it might have been anxiety, not my heart. All that sugar from the party probably didn't help either. We sat in silence for a moment before she spoke again. Where's Emma? Asleep at home, I told her. Heather's staying with her. My mother nodded. That's for the best. I wanted to tell her. She trailed off, her eyes filling with tears. I've missed so much of her life already. 5 years I can never get back, because of my stubborn pride. Mom, I began, unsure what to say. No, let me finish, she insisted, her voice stronger. When they brought me in here tonight, all I could think was, what if I die without making things right? Without Emma knowing how sorry I am for how I treated her. Without you knowing that despite everything, I've always loved you. I just didn't know how to love the choices you made. You hurt us, I said simply. Badly. I know, she acknowledged. And I'll spend whatever time I have left trying to make amends for that. If you'll let me. The monitor beside her bed beeped steadily, marking the seconds of silence between us. Emma has another birthday next year, I said finally. And the year after that, there's time, Mom. If you really mean it. She reached for my hand, and after a moment's hesitation, I let her take it. I mean it, she promised. No more judgments, no more conditions. Just love. Outside the hospital window, The summer night was clear and star-filled. Whatever lay ahead for our family, it would be different from what came before. More honest, more accepting, and hopefully, more whole. 1 year later, Emma's 7th birthday party was held at my mother's new townhouse, which featured a community pool that had been the main selling point for my water-loving daughter. The guest list included not only friends and immediate family, but also Rachel and several cousins who had become regular fixtures in our expanded family circle. "Grandma, watch this," Emma called before executing a somewhat sloppy cannonball into the pool, splashing several adults lounging nearby. "Wonderful form," my mother called back, not minding at all that her linen pants were now speckled with water. The Susan Walker of a year ago would have been horrified by such a breach of decorum. Today's version simply laughed and reached for a towel. "I still can't quite believe the transformation," Rachel murmured beside me as we arranged fruit on a platter. "If you'd told me last summer that she'd be hosting pool parties and letting kids make messes, I'd have thought you were hallucinating." "It hasn't all been smooth sailing," I reminded her. Though my mother had made remarkable progress in the past year, there had been setbacks and difficult moments. Old habits died hard, and occasionally a judgmental comment would slip out, requiring a gentle reminder of our new boundaries. "True, but the effort is consistent," Rachel acknowledged. "That counts for a lot." Across the pool deck, Jack and Amanda were setting up the birthday cake, another elaborate creation, though this year Emma had requested an ocean theme rather than unicorns. Tyler, now 7, hovered nearby, eager to help his parents, while simultaneously keeping an eye on his younger cousins in the shallow end of the pool. "Need any help?" my mother asked, approaching our food preparation station. "I think we've got it covered," I assured her. "How are you feeling today?" Since her health scare the previous year, my mother had made significant lifestyle changes, reducing stress, improving her diet, even taking up gentle yoga, much to everyone's amusement. "Better than I have in years," she replied honestly. "Having everyone here," she gestured around at the gathering. "It's what I always wanted, really. I just got lost somewhere along the way." The heart attack, that wasn't eventually diagnosed as a panic attack following the emotional turmoil of the birthday party, had indeed been clarifying for her. While recovering, she had begun therapy, initially reluctantly, but eventually with genuine commitment. The work she'd done on herself over the past year had been remarkable, though she was the first to admit she was still a work in progress. "Mom," Jack called, "we're ready for the cake whenever Emma wants to take a break from swimming." My mother glanced at me. "Would you like to do the honors this time?" I smiled, understanding the gesture. "No, I think the grandmother should serve the birthday cake. It's tradition." The word tradition hung between us for a moment, once so loaded with judgment and restriction, now reclaimed as something that could evolve and grow. Emma's delight as she blew out her 7 candles was matched only by her grandmother's pride as she served each child a perfect slice of cake, making sure Emma's piece had the sugar dolphin she'd been eyeing. Later, as evening approached and guests began to depart, I found myself alone with my mother on her small patio. "Thank you for hosting," I said. "Emma had a wonderful time." "I should be thanking you," she replied, "for giving me a second chance. Not everyone would have." Over the past year, we had had many conversations about forgiveness and reconciliation. Some had been painful, others healing. All had been necessary. "I did it for Emma initially," I admitted, "but I found it's been good for me too." My mother nodded understandingly. "And how are things with that new fellow you've been seeing?" "David, is it?" "Drew?" I corrected with a smile. "It's still early, but promising. Emma likes him. That's what matters most," she agreed, surprising me again with her evolution. A year ago, she would have focused on his profession, family background, and potential as a provider. Today, she understood that his relationship with Emma was my priority. "He's coming to dinner next week," I added. "You're welcome to join us." She considered this. "Perhaps the week after? Give you both some space to get to know each other first." Inside the house, we could hear Emma chatting animatedly with Rachel about the day's events, her voice full of excitement and lacking any of the caution that had characterized her interactions with family the previous year. "She's resilient," my mother observed. Children often are, when given the chance. Adults can be too, I pointed out. She smiled at that. Some of us just take a little longer to learn our lessons. As the summer evening faded into twilight, we joined the others inside. Emma was showing Tyler and Rachel a book she had received as a gift, while Jack and Amanda packed up leftover cake and supplies. "Everything okay?" Jack asked, noticing my thoughtful expression. "Better than okay," I assured him. And it was true. The journey from that painful birthday party a year ago to today had been challenging, but the transformation in our family was real. My mother had learned that love doesn't require control or conformity. Jack had found his voice, standing up for what was right rather than what was easy. And I had discovered that forgiveness, offered carefully and with clear boundaries, could be liberating rather than compromising. Most importantly, Emma had gained what every child deserves. A family that loved her unconditionally, not despite her origins but simply because she existed. The following weekend, as we prepared for Drew to join us for dinner, Emma helped me set the table with unusual attention to detail. "Do you think Drew will want to be my dad someday?" she asked suddenly, arranging the napkins with great concentration. The question caught me off guard. "I don't know, sweetheart. We're still getting to know each other. Would you want that?" She considered this seriously. "I think so. But only if he wants to. Grandma says families come in all different shapes, and that's okay." "Grandma said that?" I couldn't hide my surprise. Emma nodded. "Last week when I stayed at her house, she was showing me old pictures. And I asked why I don't have a dad in my pictures. She said some families have moms and dads, some have just moms or just dads. Some have two moms or two dads. And some have lots of other people who love them. She said what matters isn't the shape of your family, but how much love is in it." I blinked back unexpected tears. My mother's journey from rigid traditionalist to someone who could express such inclusive sentiment to her granddaughter was perhaps the most profound transformation of all. That night, after Emma was in bed, I called my mother. "Emma told me what you said about families coming in different shapes," I said when she answered. "Thank you for that." "I only told her the truth," my mother replied. "The truth I was too stubborn to see for too long." "Better late than never," I offered. "Much better," she agreed. "Though I'll always regret the time wasted." "We can't change the past," I reminded her, echoing something the family therapist often said. "We can only decide what to do with today and tomorrow. And I've decided to spend them loving my family, all of my family, exactly as they are." As I hung up the phone, I reflected on the journey we had traveled. A single moment a grandmother denying cake to her granddaughter had ultimately led to healing wounds that had festered for decades. Sometimes, I realized, the most painful moments can become catalysts for the most necessary changes. 1 month later, we gathered again for my mother's 70th birthday. The celebration was modest by her previous standards, but rich in what truly mattered. Genuine connection, laughter, and love, unburdened by expectations or conditions. As I watched Emma help her grandmother open gifts, their heads bent together in shared delight, I recognized the profound truth that had emerged from our family's journey. True family values aren't about conformity to rigid traditions or maintaining appearances. They're about acceptance, growth, forgiveness, and the courage to challenge harmful patterns even when they're disguised as principles. Emma had taught all of us, especially my mother, that love should never be conditional, that family bonds are strengthened by acceptance rather than judgment, and that it's never too late to create a more inclusive definition of family. So, if you ever find yourself at a crossroads between upholding rigid traditions and embracing a more accepting path, remember that sometimes the bravest, most loving choice is to question the values you've been taught. Sometimes the most important family tradition is learning to create new ones that make room for everyone at the table. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself or someone you love against family traditions or expectations? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it brings some comfort or clarity to your own family journey.